So many of us have that dream, retiring somewhere warmer, maybe a little cheaper, where life just moves at a different pace. And it sounds incredible, right? But there's this one huge question people often forget to ask until it's way too late. What in the world happens to your Canadian pensions when you actually leave the country? Okay, let's really get into this, because the truth is, some of your benefits, they'll follow you to the ends of the earth, no problem. But others are, well, they're a maybe, and some can just stop, cold, if you're not paying attention. So let's break down how to get this right. All right, the single most important thing to get straight from the start is that CPP and OAS are two totally different animals. Seriously, this is where all the confusion begins. Think of it this way. CPP is an earned pension. It's your money. You worked, you paid in, it's yours. OAS, on the other hand, is a benefit you get based on how long you've lived in Canada. It's tied to residency. If you can get that one distinction locked in your head, everything else we talk about is going to make so much more sense. So let's kick things off with the good news. And that good news is all about your Canada pension plan. This is the answer everyone hopes for. If you've earned your CPP, that money does not just evaporate because you decide to move to Portugal or Panama. It's an earned pension, and it is yours, period. But, and this is a big but, the question isn't really, do I still get it? The real question, the one that matters to your bank account, is how much of it do I actually get to keep? Because now we have to start talking about things like taxes, and that's where the real planning has to begin. Okay, now let's switch gears to old age security, OAS, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement, or GIS. This, my friends, is where the rules start to get a whole lot trickier. Here is a number you absolutely need to remember: 20. To keep getting your OAS payments while you're living in another country, you generally need to have lived in Canada for at least 20 years after you turned 18. This is the magic threshold, and it trips up so many people who just assume that if they get OAS here, they'll automatically get it anywhere. It's just not that simple. So that 20-year rule is the main gatekeeper. But there is another little wrinkle. Canada has social security agreements with a lot of countries, which can sometimes help you meet that 20-year requirement. But, and listen close, because this is a big one. Just because an agreement helps you qualify for the payment, it doesn't change the amount you get. That amount is still mostly based on the actual number of years you physically lived in Canada. Now for the next really crucial distinction. While OAS might come with you if you move, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, GIS, is a completely different story. It's designed specifically for low-income seniors who are living in Canada. What that means for most people is that your GIS payments will stop if you're out of the country for more than 6 months. For anyone relying on that income, that can be a massive, unexpected hole in the retirement budget. Okay, so we've covered what you get. Now for the part that really hits the bottom line, the super complex world of non-resident taxes and international tax treaties. Right, so as a non-resident, Canada's going to withhold tax from your pension payments, and the amount can be wildly different. If you move to a country that doesn't have a tax treaty with Canada, the government takes a flat 25%. But if there is a tax treaty, that rate can drop, often to around 15%. Now think about that. That's a 10% difference. On a $2,000 a month pension, that's $200 right back in your pocket. Every single month. All of a sudden, where you move becomes a huge financial decision. And on top of that, you've got the OAS recovery tax, which everybody just calls the clawback. It's pretty simple. If your net world income, and that means money from all sources all over the world, goes above a certain limit, the Canadian government starts taking some of your OAS back. This is a really big deal for retirees with higher incomes. And those tax treaties we mentioned, yeah, they can affect how this works too. And hey, just because you left Canada doesn't mean you're done with the paperwork. To manage that clawback, you'll often have to file a special form called the Old Age Security Return of Income. If you don't file it, your OAS could get cut or even stopped altogether. The assumption that you're done with the CRA once you move, that is a really dangerous mistake to make. Okay, I know, that's a lot of moving parts. So how do you actually sort through all this and make a smart decision? Well, let's try to simplify it with a checklist. So this whole thing really boils down to answering a few key questions. First, what are you even eligible for? Look at your CPP, check that 20-year rule for OAS, and be honest about whether losing GIS would blow up your budget. Second, figure out the tax hit. Does your dream destination have a tax treaty? Are you getting close to that clawback income level? And finally, what's the paperwork going to look like? Answering these questions is how you go from having a fuzzy dream to a concrete financial plan. I just love this quote from our source material because it absolutely nails it. This whole process, it's not just about changing your view. You are fundamentally redesigning the entire architecture of your retirement income. It's a financial project first and a lifestyle choice second. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to think about. When you weigh all the variables, the residency rules, the withholding taxes, the treaties, what really matters more to you? Is it the allure of a lower cost of living somewhere new, or is it the financial certainty and the sheer predictability that comes with staying right here in Canada? It's a deeply personal trade-off, and the only right answer is the one that works for your numbers.